Welcome back to the Armchair Attorney Podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Leffler, a real-life lawyer and a law professor, adjunct, let me specify, adjunct law professor. I love supply chain. I love this interesting business that we seemingly cannot escape. Essential work at its best. How do you get those things that you need? Oh, those things that you need. They all come on a truck. Everything, for the most part, comes on a truck. And that hasn't changed for 100 years. The last 100 years of the business of supply chain can be marked by very specific moments. The advent of the internal combustion engine, containerization in the 50s and 60s, deregulation in the 80s and 90s. And now, as we look forward, we see the age of automation. Autonomous trucks are no longer science fiction. They will be here on the public highways soon enough. They'll be hauling interstate, across state lines soon enough. And the technology is only increasing. And that's what today's show is about, the technology that powers the supply chain. Right now in this country, there are over 500,000 motor carriers. There are millions of truck drivers. There are 25,000 or so freight brokers, 4,000 interstate bus companies, all regulated by the FMCSA, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. So many things have to work for the stuff to arrive at your door or the stuff to arrive on the shelf. So much orchestration has to happen. And behind the scenes are technology companies powering the innovation that we need in order to get our stuff ever faster, ever cheaper, and hopefully ever safer. As always, I'm excited for you to join us. This is another edition of what we continue to do. We have our friends over at DAT, Dial a Truck. Since 1978, DAT has helped truckers find loads, helping brokers find capacity, discovering ways to more efficiently move the things that seemingly never stop. We got that logo. We got that hat. That's right. Thank you to my friends at DAT for sponsoring this podcast among all the help that they do. Love that company. Big fans of that company. And I suspect my guest today, Carrie Jablonski, may also find DAT to be an interesting company. Trucker Tools. Oh, Trucker Tools. I am so excited to talk with Carrie. We've been friends a long time, internet friends mostly, though we've met in person from time to time. She just completed one of the most interesting, acquisitions in supply chain in the last year or so. Trucker Tools acquired by DAT. We're going to talk with Carrie, and she's hot off the trails from her time at Manifest, the future supply chain and logistics. I have questions. I wasn't there. I was there last year, not this year. I'm an old man. I can't be going gallivanting around to these places. Now, without further ado, I am so excited to welcome my very special guest and friend of all things freight, Carrie Jablonski. Carrie, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
Well, happy Valentine's Day. We made it.
Happy Valentine's Day. I've candidly never been a massive Valentine's Day celebrant. It's one of my brother's birthdays, so happy birthday there to Matt.
He's got a great name.
I'm sure he does have a great name. I'm sure he's tuning in. Definitely not.
Absolutely.
But, I'll send him this so he can see I wish him happy birthday.
Well, I was debating about wearing the red sweater and the red coat, but my wife is like, that's a terrible idea. Don't do that. So I said, okay, that's fair. That's fair.
This is one of the only days of the year I think you could get away with that and pull it off.
I need to think about that. Now, you have been so busy. But for the folks who don't know who you are you and what do you do?
Yeah. So my name is Carrie Jablonski. I live in Chicago. As you can see downtown among the row houses and the gray stones. What do I do? So I right now am the VP and General Manager of Broker Growth and Trucker Tools at DAT. So there is a lot going on. That is my official title, and I'll break that down a little bit more clearly. And I think it is relevant to share a little bit of backstory that you referenced. So I was the CEO of Trucker Tools, a visibility and carrier sourcing platform for about 3.5 years, and I can talk more about that experience. We sold Trucker Tools to DAT in December, and I joined the DAT team to continue running Trucker Tools. We're keeping the brand, everything continuing to hum and drum, and step into an expanded role with the broker business at DAT, focused right now on our Freight Match DAT1 product, our IQ business, and our forthcoming carrier management suite. So the last couple of months have been very busy, but they've been great. I've loved getting up to speed at DAT. The team is awesome. The data is pretty mind-boggling, and the power of the combination of the Trucker Tools data and carrier network and customer base with the DAT platform. We're already seeing the power of that. So I couldn't be more excited about what's happened and where we're going.
That's incredible. So before we get to the talk of like the merger and the discussions and all of that, how did you get involved with Trucker Tools to begin with? What drove you to learn about the world of supply chain?
Yeah. So my path into freight is a little bit different than I think a lot of folks, though I do think there is one common thread to everyone, which is that they say, oh, I didn't expect to end up in the freight world. And that was definitely my case. Way back when, as a kid, honestly, I was always really interested in how things moved around in the built environment. My mom was really heavily involved in local government, and that got me thinking about how cities are built and how things in the physical world move. So fast forward, after I graduated from school, I was really excited about the potential of technology to impact the built environment. And at that time, Uber had been growing really, really quickly. It was in that hyper growth phase. And I thought it was just the coolest consumer product out there, where you're actually moving the physical world through a digital application. So I joined Uber back in 2016, which was my introduction to logistics as a operations and logistics manager. I was focused on ride sharing at the time. So doing things like managing marketplaces, figuring out how do we manage supply and demand, running airports programs, and just generally kind of problem solving and with the mandate of growing that business. And I loved it. So that was my introduction to freight. Fast forward, or sorry, not to freight, to logistics. I also worked on last mile delivery. And then fast forward a couple of years, I actually I'd left Uber and I was looking for what I was going to do next. And I had met the owners of Trucker Tools at the time, a private equity firm called Alpine Investors. They were looking for operators to come in and run their businesses. They just bought Trucker Tools, and there's a really great natural fit given my background with marketplaces and mobile at Uber, and just some of the qualities they were looking for in a leader. So they took a risk and put me in the seat, and it was awesome.
That's incredible. I love the rideshare companies. Years ago, I interviewed with Uber in an in-house role many, many years ago. And they said, no one knows how to regulate us. And I said, you're just like owner operators and like the matrix of brokers who use independent contractors. It's not that different. They go, no, it is. But as you kind of tell us the story, you move from freight that can complain, which is human beings, to freight that generally doesn't complain. Did you find that the freight that doesn't complain to be more interesting or more fun than working with the human beings that get moved from place to place?
Yeah, working with human beings presents its own challenges. Back when I started at Uber, we used to have ticket parties where you'd have to, we were all the customer support team, and we'd have to hammer out a certain number of tickets every night, vomit in the cab, and I mean, many, many worse instances. And they've certainly very formalized and improved those processes since then. So yeah, it's nice to not have to deal with that. But I mean, there's just as much, if not more, chaos and things that go wrong in this kind of freight. So they're both interesting.
That's why I love this business. Like when like AB5 gets promoted out in California, everyone's like, okay, what does this mean for the trucking companies? What does this mean for the gig companies? And the gig companies, like Uber, Grubhub, DoorDash, they spend $200 million lobbying to get Prop 22 to carve them out and say, no, we're not part of this. So it's like, they're so well organized. I loved watching that kind of play out. Now, how long were you the CEO of Trucker Tools for?
About 3 years. I became the CEO in early 2022, and we were acquired in the last month of 2025.
That's incredible. So as you're sitting there, you're probably running a formal process. What triggers the process? Is it the private equity folks that say it's time for us to get a new home? Or do you get the inbound inquiry saying, hey, you're building this phenomenal company. How can we partner with you?
Yeah. So I'll be candid. Alpine loved this business and loved what we did with it, so they weren't eager to let us go. And I actually had to push a little bit to say I think this is the right moment. In part because we were starting to get more inbound interest from both sponsors and strategic saying, "Hey, we think this would be an awesome fit." So I'd been building conviction for a while that the time was right if we wanted to take this business to the next level. That we needed to team up with someone who could really help us grow and scale it, which had me really interested in a couple of the network businesses within the freight markets, DAT, of course, being one of them, because I just saw how powerful it would be. That our customer overlap on the is almost completely exactly the same. So just a ton of power in that. Every broker that is using DAT is likely also struggling with visibility and trying to figure out how do we increase automation. So there's just a really, really natural fit that adds a ton of value for our customers, not to even mention the massive benefit of combining our databases together. A huge benefit for brokers using DAT is just the power of their rating intelligence. And we have a ton of phenomenal data that we can build right into the platform and build a stronger product.
Now, when you guys are out before the acquisition, before the conversations, are you competing or are you guys quasi frenemies? Like, what does that relationship look like before the deal gets done?
Yeah, I would say quasi frenemies. I think is more. We definitely weren't competing. I mean, DAT had a tracking product called On Time, or has a tracking product called On Time. They were not who we would come up against with deals. Our main focus at Trucker Tools is on visibility. We do have some capacity products, but different approach than DAT. DAT is more of a marketplace, whereas Trucker Tools was focused more on carrier sourcing, or is focused more on carrier sourcing, identifying the right fit carrier, and some automation tools that brokers can plug into their TMS to drive freight matching. So some actually really complementary capacity tool sets there.
Now, were you, as Trucker Tools, are you pulling data from ELDs, or is it app based? Like, what was the way you would get the penetration to the motor carrier?
Yeah, I can walk you through that. So, and I actually think it makes sense to go back in time. Our business was founded back around 2010 by Prasad Golapalli and Murali Yelapeti. And they had this amazing insight that back right as smartphones were emerging, I had a BlackBerry at the time. No, there certainly weren't mobile apps on BlackBerry. The App Store had just launched. That owner operators needed some sort of digital assistant for their life on the road. So they built an app first aimed at helping truckers find truck stops nearby and sending promo codes to get them to stop at truck stops, that eventually evolved into really your all-in-one tool set for life on the road. Way station locators, truck-specific parking, anything you might need out there. That built this amazing brand equity for Trucker Tools. We built a massive small carrier, really owner operator audience in the early 2010s. And owner operators are really loyal folks. When they find something they like, they stick with it. And that has continued to serve us really, really well. We give away a ton of value for free on that app too, like I mentioned. So it's really kind of a give and a take, which is great. So primarily we started our load tracking and visibility business in the mid 2010s, focused on the mobile app. But then post ELD mandate, we realized there was a huge opportunity to transition to add ELD as really the first part of what we now call our visibility waterfall. So today, as it stands, we have 4 different, or really 5 different ways that we aggregate data from motor carriers. First is our ELD network. We have integrations with about 200 different providers, tens of thousands of carriers, hundreds of thousands of trucks, as a result, directly integrated into our ELD network. If we don't have an integration with carrier, A, we'll build it. And then B, we automatically waterfall to what we call, or to our mobile app, which is adopted really, really widely, hundreds of thousands of monthly active users. Wow. And we've got a couple of more dragnet capabilities as well. We have our text to track solution and our WhatsApp to track solution. If a carrier is not able to use a mobile app for some reason, we can just receive a location update there. And then we also do direct API integrations with larger fleets.
It's fascinating because like this change of everyone was expecting to have supercomputers in their pocket like 5-10 years ago, and how that kind of changed our business. The ELD mandate to this day remains one of the biggest fundamental changes after deregulation in 1980, where now every single truck, newerest truck, like last 20 years or so, has a machine that's telling you how many hours you have left. And so the requirement of every driver to have this stuff is kind of there. And then you're building these connections into these systems. Do you have like your own TMS, or is it something like you guys have, or is it like you sit on top of the TMS? How do you relate to like the small motor carrier who has the ELD and they're sending you guys data in that space?
Yeah, so for ELDs, we have integrations with the platform. So Motive, Samsara, Geotab, there are hundreds of them out there. Many of them are actually just resellers of one of the bigger guys, but we build direct integrations with those platforms. And then specific carriers who are using this ELD or that ELD give us permission either through usually it's just a really easy one-click process. Sometimes we have to get a little bit of information, an API key or something from the carrier. They give us access to that, consent to load tracking at the time of pickup until the load's delivered. We always want to, it's been really important to us throughout the entire lifetime of Trucker Tools to respect carrier privacy as one of our guiding principles. And we get access that way. We do, like I mentioned, we have some API integrations directly with carriers through TMSs, but that's not been the preference, honestly, for most of our carriers for how to track. And that's been another principle of ours is the carrier lets us know how they want to be tracked, and we just go with that. We're just looking to receive information from them so that we can provide it to a broker who can then provide it to a shipper, help them run a really lean, mean operation, and make sure they're providing the levels of service they've promised their customers.
So you build this phenomenal company, you grow it in a crazy fashion, and then you're looking in end of 2024, maybe mid 2024. Who calls who? Is it Dat knocking on your door? Is it Ken Adamo saying, "Hey, Carrie, let's have a conversation"? Or how does that work?
Yeah. No, I was the one who went to Dat. I surfaced the opportunity to them. But once we met, it was pretty clear, okay, there's something awesome here and this is exciting and let's figure it out. But again, we weren't actually, we ran a pretty tight process with Trucker Tools, in part because I think we knew the space so well. We knew who the best fit partners for us long-term would be. So we didn't, this wasn't a kind of spray and pray. Let's see who's willing to bite.
You didn't hire a banker to go run a bunch of management presentations all across the country.
We did actually hire a bank to manage, just because, I mean, this is
a lot of stuff. The data rooms, they're alone are massive.
Yeah, it is a decent sized transaction. So I didn't, we weren't going to be able to handle all of the, all the legal stuff a lot more than I do.
That's right. I usually don't bring comments up, Carrie. I usually don't, but Ken's watching. So yes, we love Ken Adamo. I'm a big fan of Ken.
It's been so much fun to work with Ken. He was just an internet personality to me before, and now he's my coworker. It's awesome. But yeah, I went to DAT and said, hey, I think there's a real opportunity here. Met Jeff Clements, the new CEO, who's awesome as well. He saw the vision. Ken and a number of other folks on the team. We got together and we made it work.
What I find fascinating about this deal is, like, I remember attending DatCon and I got a chance to speak on some of the interesting legal trends in the industry. And I remember the constant refrain. This has been the same refrain I saw at the Journal of Commerce, that I saw at Broker Carrier Summit, is this idea of how do we combat fraud? How do we stop cargo theft? How do we deter strategic cargo theft? And DAT is always targeted. Same with Truckstop to a degree. It's like, oh, this is these places where the nefarious activities take place. They invest not just internally with their resources, but they look out and they collaborate with you. You have been fighting this fight from the beginning. So what is it that makes Trucker Tools so uniquely positioned to battle things like fraud and strategic cargo theft?
Yeah. There's lots that I can go into, but I even want to start by saying, I think you're exactly right that DAT has done an awesome job cleaning up fraud on the platform. That was one of customers' biggest concerns in 22, 23. And the efforts that the team has taken to remove bad actors from the platform and invest in systems and products that make it a lot more difficult for them to get back in has been pretty remarkable. And Trucker Tools is just going to only accelerate that roadmap. So first and foremost, tracking as a practice, tracking your freight is a fraud prevention tool in itself. If you're a broker and a carrier saying, I'm not going to track, that should set off red flags. Trucker Tools has never had a reported instance of fraud on our platform when a carrier has been using an ELD to track. It is by far the most secure way to make sure that post pickup, your freight is safe. And even with some of our other methods, like mobile, we've invested a lot in building fraud alerting into what we do. So we can proactively notify a broker. There's something you're going to want to check out here. You might want to bounce a carrier from a load. We have a couple of those alerts in market right now. We've got more coming out actually next week. Things like when we notify you that there's a spoofing device, a VPN potentially being used on a mobile app. We're getting pings from an offshore data center somewhere where it doesn't look like it's right. So we know something might be going on there. We've got an overbooked alert coming out. We've got an out of range alert coming out. So if you're looking to track a carrier who's picking up in Memphis and we get a ping from them that they're actually in Dallas, we can notify you that something's not right here. You need to investigate. And that really fits in with our broader tracking vision of making tracking something that runs in the background to provide great service for your customers and really only engage you when there is a proactive or when there is an exception to be managed proactively. That's our vision.
That's the goal for everything. It's like, I want to help you manage exceptions. Like what I don't want to do is give everyone all this stuff that just completely overwhelms them. Speaking of things that are too many and too much overwhelming, how do you guys think about trailers? So I love a good commercial trailer. Give me a 53-foot van with swing doors. Heck, I'll take a 28-foot pup with a roll up. I'm okay with this. Give me a dolly. I'm happy. What do you think about the world of connected trailers? So there's only a few of them that are out there, but what do you think about that space?
Yeah, I think it's a huge area of opportunity for us. The one place where it's actually really, really immediately already applicable to what we're doing is in the cross-border tracking that we have live in the market. So cross-border, for those of you who aren't familiar, almost always involves multiple carriers because you've got whichever way you're going, you've got a carrier in Mexico who's going to hand it off to, there's something like basically 1,000 carriers who handle almost all of the cross-border movements because they have certain certifications and there's a specific customs process you need to go through. So we hand it off to the carrier going cross-border, and then you pass on again to a different carrier to haul it to its final destination in the US. And it has been a game changer for us to target and integrate with those cross-border trailers specifically.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If you're trying to track a truck there, you're only going to have visibility. It's really a black hole because there's so much switching going on and carriers aren't running the full duration of the line haul. So all to say, love trailer visibility. It's something we do. We have integrations with Skybits and Orbcom and those providers.
Nice.
So we've got GPS visibility on those. And another place where we build out integrations, and I think you can really see the power of connected trailers is with our temperature tracking product. So
yes, there you go.
Yeah, we heard that a lot kind of early, I think early last year, maybe late 23. This was really brought on by the Kroger One Network mandate that Kroger started asking all of their transportation partners to ensure that if they were hauling refrigerated freight, they were integrated into the One Network platform, which is another kind of shipper visibility platform. And we realized there's a huge opportunity to streamline that process for our customers by integrating with reefer telematics trailer device.
Thermo King and carrier. That's what we got to do.
We plug into Thermo King and then we're able to get that reefer information in real time. And again, back to the theme of inspection or exception management, which is driving so much of what we do. As a visibility platform, we track trailer temperatures and we can tell you if something goes wrong. So we can get ahead of it. We can notify you as a broker so you can start to work on it. And then also importantly, it's really helpful for claims. So you have a clear, detailed report of what happened in that trailer at what time can really speed up things there too.
I could probably spend like the rest of this conversation just talking about temperature control trailers. So that's what I'm going to do. We'll dive into things, but let me dive into this a little bit more. So one of the cool things about temperature control trailers, now there's most people think of them as single temp 53-foot swing doors. That's what most people think about. But the reality is like where the real money is in this business is the multi-temps that have like different areas have to be different temperatures and you have to maintain those. And just like chain of custody or blockchain, like I need to know if it ever deviated from this threshold. So what level of detail, how granular do you get into like what you're learning from the temperature control telematics?
Yeah, extremely detailed. We do multi-zone trailer tracking.
Yes.
Yeah, literally there's a chart in real time on our dashboard that will show you, we'll have 3 or 4 different colors. If there's 3 or 4 different zones, we'll show you what temperatures are at in real time and have different thresholds set up for different temperatures on each of those zones. So you can get alerts if there's deviations.
So the shippers are going to love this. The receivers are going to love this. I imagine the insurance professionals probably also like to know.
Yeah.
In my experience, the most common service event besides like scheduled maintenance on a reefer is that it runs out of fuel. That is like the most common. Oh, I didn't realize it had to be fueled up. Do you guys see that information, those types of codes saying, hey, you need to get some fuel? What else do you see?
Not yet, but I think you're
Ah,
speaking to exactly the power of how much data is being collected through these telematics devices, both on trailer or tractor. Another area that we're talking a lot about is altitude tracking for anyone
mm.
shipping potato chips. That can really make a big difference. That can literally make or break your load. So our product team is diving in right now. I think two of the big areas where we're focused on as a business and a product are, one, like I mentioned, on proactive exception management. How do we get ahead of that as a fraud prevention tool, as a time saver, as an automation theme for our end users, brokers on the floor, and then two, multidimensional visibility.
Well, and this is like the value I think that with this combination with you and DAP is so powerful because I imagine there are brokers who wish they could get into some level of temperature control freight and understanding that space is brutal. Like you can just get a load of shrimp that's frozen that gets thawed out is a disaster. That's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's nice to see you pushing in this direction of innovation as we kind of look at the future for your trailer tracking, just for the folks who are listening who don't know, I mean, there's about 5 million trailers in the US, and probably a third or so have any tracking at all. Like most of them don't have anything. So my goal has always been to help people understand, like, what's the value of having trailer tracking? And the value is fraud prevention. There's a lot of other interesting things. Where do you guys see the innovation for you specifically in the trailer space? So we got the temperature control. What other places are you looking to dive into?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's exactly what you just mentioned, around fuel, around usage, around maintenance. There's all of that information that can come into the fold. And again, we can figure out how do we tap into patterns we recognize there because we are accessing hundreds of thousands of loads on a regular basis to identify patterns of,
Mhm.
hey, something's going wrong. We need to get this in front of the carrier, the broker, ASAP, so that they can get ahead of this exception that they're going to have to manage. So I mean, it's the amount of data that these telematics businesses and platforms capture is pretty remarkable. And we've got awesome relationships with them to figure out how we can really, again, just make, reduce the burden of having to track things manually and so that you can just continue to do your job and be notified when you might need to jump in on something.
There was a great report by the U.S. Post Office a couple years ago about trailer tracking. They had leased like 10,000 or 11,000 trailers, and they did some research with their partners in telematics, and they discovered that a large swath of this equipment was just sitting, not moving at all. It was like sitting for a month. And they'd say, well, if we have this for a month, we should return it if we're not using it. And they estimated that they were spending $400,000 a month that they shouldn't have been spending. So one of the key parts about just connected devices generally is if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. So you better measure it, and then we'll figure out what insights we can get. So as we move away from the world of trailers, and I do love them, and I am reluctant to do that, as you get into where the next innovation kind of looks at, for me, I'm thinking about autonomous trucks. I think about robots every day. I think that's normal for a 40-year-old man. But what do you think about the world of automation as it creeps into the middle mile or the warehouse and docks areas? Like, what do you think about that for trucker tools?
Yeah, I think autonomous trucking is going to be a thing at some point. I'm not smart enough to tell you when that's going to be a thing. And I think enough people have gotten that wrong already. I won't offer myself up as another voice that's probably underinformed on this topic. So I think it's going to be here. And I think what I've noticed over the last couple of years that I've been in freight is that there are some major changes, like you outlined, deregulation in the 80s, the ELD mandate of the 2010s. Beyond that, innovation happens, and that results in kind of massive bursts of innovation. Beyond that, a lot of this innovation, especially as it relates to automation, happens not slowly, but in a somewhat linear fashion.
Mhm.
I'm just thinking about all of the automation tools that are out there, our tools on the trucker tools capacity side, our tracking product. It's not like we invented this we built our tracking product and all of a sudden we had 100% total visibility at all times. This is an old school industry, and it is going to take a long time for any innovation to become widely adopted. You can look at the standard technology adoption curves, and freight is often, moving well behind a lot of other industries, and that's fine. But when it comes to autonomous trucks, sounds great. That's if safety is obviously really important to us. If this is a safer way to transport goods, if it introduces a whole new class of jobs for owner operators and for folks, love that too. If it's better for the environment, that's awesome. But I wouldn't say I'm in the best way possible. It's not something that I care too much about yet, because I just think we are a long way off from that, and we will be planning well into the future as this becomes more and more of a reality. But as far as the day-to-day goes, we're really just laser focused on let's improve the life of the owner operator and the small carrier, allow them to win more business, work with more brokers, grow their own livelihoods, and that's what we're all about.
Well, I'm going to jump off the ledge and talk about where I think autonomous trucks come, because
you're so much smarter than I am. I would love to hear your take.
Not true. That is very kind of you to say. It's not true. I'll use a couple of data points as I kind of argue this central theme. My belief is that transportation over the last 100 years has been finding ways to reduce the cost of labor, or however you want to characterize that. But in 1980, 80% of truckers were unionized. If you adjust that for inflation, they were like 130 grand a year, what they were making back in 1980. So as you fast forward, in 1880, there were 18,000 motor carriers. Today, there's 500 something thousand. And it's a vast majority of these small companies that have popped up. You see the same thing on the brokerage side. 20 years ago, brokers moved 6% of freight or something like that. Today, it's like 20, 25%. And what we saw brokers do was offshore. That was like this interesting way to reduce cost. We're going to offshore this with Lean or Rapido or Zelle. And then today, and we saw this at F3, we saw this other places, automation for carrier sales reps. So what has once offshored can now be automated. And that movement is a trend and a force that no one, I think, can stop. So looking at autonomous trucks, we have the FMCSA has put out not necessarily rules. They put out a supplemental advanced notice of proposed rulemaking, a SAMPRIM. It's a silly name, but it means level 4 and level 5 automation, level 4 remote operator, level 5 remote assistant. And once those regulations actually happen and they become the law of the land, I see the middle mile moving rapidly, because if I can solve labor and make it so they never want a meal period or the hours of service aren't as important, then you're really focused on all of the sensors that need tracking, like the Kodiak or the Aurora. So my belief is it'll come slowly, but once the regulations are there, I think the door opens in a way that we never go backwards. I feel like it'll be so fast. And it might be 5 years from now. I believe if we have by the end of this year, maybe early 26, the FMCSA puts out rules. I think they will. And then we'll watch as the motor carriers race to see who can lower their costs fastest.
Let's check back in 5 years and see where we're at.
Oh, it'll be amazing, Carrie. I can't wait. I for one, welcome our robot overlords. I will betray the humans at the first opportunity. Let me be very clear about that.
I don't blame you. Get in line.
All right, so as we look at the future of trucker tools and the future of DAT, what is getting you like the most excited? What's really motivating you right now?
What is most exciting for me is the ability to build product that is going to positively impact our customers faster. That is the single most exciting thing for our customers. I'm also a big fan of our employees, and I'm really excited about some moves we've already made internally to put folks in bigger, more impactful, wider scoped roles, and for that trend to continue within this combined organization. But I'll talk specifically on your question on the external front. The thing I'm most excited about at DAT is the forthcoming product that we are building right now and have a beta coming up shortly called our Carrier Management Suite, which is really DAT's introduction into this into a procurement platform for trusted capacity. So what we're going to do is actually embed verification, authentication in everything we do for both brokers and carriers, and build out a new way to use the network and the massive scale and reach that DAT has to make sure that you as a broker are able to find and work with carriers you trust as a default rule. So what that actually means is we're going to introduce carrier monitoring for compliance, better, more real-time, more accurate truck searches and capacity searching, and the ability to actually make your freight only available to and visible to certain carriers who meet different qualification criteria. So it's really like going from almost more of a Craigslist model to a much more dynamic Expedia style marketplace.
Could you filter that marketplace based on the insurance that the motor carrier has? So I won't want to work with anyone who's at the minimum 750. I want $1 million or $1.5 million. Can you do it that way?
Yeah, we're building and talking right now with brokers and carriers about many different sort of qualification and filtering criteria that would be valuable for them to book freight faster.
That's incredible. Okay, now the one question I've been wanting to ask you, and I'm glad I can finally get you on record with this. When is the book coming out? Every week, I look for the beautiful image and all of the information. So how many states are left, and then when does the book hit the stands?
You are the biggest fan of Freight by State, and I'm very grateful for it. It's really been amazing to see the reaction to it. People love it. People love maps. That is the core insight. Everyone loves a map, and I do too. And everyone loves a stylized map. And it's been awesome. I've had so many brokers come up to me and say, "Hey, we're using this as a way to train our new reps on different trends and areas of the country." So it's really cool that it's actually valuable. I need to ask our marketing team. I think we're about 30 states in.
Okay.
So probably about 20-ish more to go. We're also talking Freight by State Canada, Freight by State Mexico. So there are going to be some offshoot series here. So
can I recommend one offshoot series?
Please.
Maybe like fantasy ones, like maybe Middle Earth would be very useful. I think that would be very, it would really help me explain to my kids like why we have to go to the Shire. So if that's feasible, I would love that as well.
I love that idea. I will definitely be chewing on that. Yeah, that should put our total US Freight by State collection together by end of the summer-ish. So we'll be back in touch later in the year on what to expect there.
Cause like that's the thing. Like I think like to your point, people love to learn and they love to be educated, they love to be entertained. And what you've built was something really compelling. I mean, it's interesting because it's colorful and it describes things. But I remember when I was a middle schooler taking classes about the imports and exports of a given state. Oh, we do soybeans here, we do coal here. And like that was fascinating. And you've kind of scratched that itch that I didn't know that I still had. That's why I'm such a big fan of it, because it is so useful to describe why the way this supply chain functions is the way it functions, because there's things flying every single way and direction at all times.
Yeah. Again, going back to kind of my origin story, that was part of what got me interested in transportation and freight and logistics long-term was just understanding how our built environment in our world is laid out and structured has always been just something that's piqued some part of my brain's interest. So I can completely relate to that.
It's like the mechanical mindset. It's like, I see this, but I want to understand how it works. I can't like appreciate something unless I understand the components that built it. And once you can understand, like, oh, this makes sense. So you're now, we'll count the Uber time as part of logistics. So you're 10, 15 years into the world of logistics?
Yeah, close to that.
Do you think you'll ever get out? Have you become a lifer? Did you realize this? Like, where are you at in that stage?
I think I have become a lifer. I don't think I have any other option. And it just sucks you in. And I think I've met so many awesome people in the industry, and I see the infinite amount of problems and space to solve those problems that I don't know why I would pursue something else. So I couldn't be more excited about being in it for the long haul.
The nice thing I think for people is like, even those who think they can escape this business, they really can't, because everything is supply chain. Like whatever it is that you do, if you're a roofing company or if you're a utility company, I mean, you're dealing with all of these issues. Are you encouraged by what you've seen in the last couple? Because you've been to Manifest. How was Manifest? What was your experience like with that big event?
Yeah, Manifest was good. It was great. I always love getting the team together in person since so many of us are spread out. So it was awesome to be with some of the Truckers Tools team and to meet a number of folks from DAT in person. When I go to trade shows, what I care about is seeing our customers. And I saw a number of our customers there. So that was a great use of time. I'll be honest, it was just a massive show. There were close to 7,000 people there. And that for me was a little overwhelming. It did put into perspective just the wild pace of innovation in the broader supply chain space. I mean, there were massive displays with warehouse automation, drones, and all of these things that were so interesting. But I personally am just so laser focused on our customers, specifically freight brokers and carriers. That's really what I have eyes for at these things. So I'm looking forward to some other conferences that are a little bit more focused, if you will. And I can only do Vegas maybe once a year. So I mean,
yeah, I unfortunately I couldn't make it because I was teaching on Tuesdays, so it didn't work out for my schedule. But as I look forward, like for what you have coming up, what other conferences are you excited about? Where are you going to be in the next couple of weeks or months?
yeah. Next conference, so that we as a business will be at. I'm sure DAT's got some more on the docket, but Trucker Tools will absolutely be at MATS, the Mid-America Trucking Show, which is pretty remarkable. I don't even know how many people attend that, but massive gathering in Kentucky of tons and tons and tons of owner operators and carriers. So that'll be great. I unfortunately will not be able to make that, but the next conference I'll be at in person is the TIA Capital Ideas Conference in San Antonio in April, which to my point of I want to be where our customers are, it's where our customers are. So I couldn't be more excited about that. Are you going to be at TIA?
I probably will. The class goes until like end of April, and then papers are due like the first day of May. So like I'm not used to being a professor. This is new to me, Carrie. So I'm very much like building the plane as I take off, and I feel like I'll be there, but I'm not going to commit to anything at this point.
Great.
Now, as we kind of wrap up the conversation, I got to imagine like the best part, like the most enjoyable part so far of the combination of you and Dat is that you personally get to have 2 email addresses. Is that a fair characterization?
Did I talk to you about that? Because
no, I just assume I've sold companies before. I know that change.
No, I know. And like massive shout out to the DATIT team because they are doing the Lord's work trying to get all of our stuff together. But yeah, it is. I definitely have missed some meetings. I had to reschedule one today because I'm not effective at managing 2 calendars. So we're gonna get that all wrapped up soon, which I'm very excited about. And again, grateful to the team.
That's the most time-consuming integration cost. Ultimately, is the swapping over the emails and then having the old ones forwarded. Will you eventually be a DAT email, or will you have the Trucker Tools going simultaneously?
Yeah, so I already have my DAT email, but and all my emails are forwarded to the same inbox right now.
There you go.
So kjablonski@truckertools.com, Carrie.jablonski@dat.com. I honestly don't know. I'm still spending so much of my time focused on Trucker Tools, and that's again, I just sound like a broken record here, but that's where I talk to our customers from. So I found myself in that Google Workspace a lot more than the DAT workspace. But as I'm continuing to ramp up on DAT, I'm sure I'm going to find myself there more. So you can find me at either. I'm checking both all the time.
As we kind of wrap up, I think like it's such a great moment to realize the validation. I think the validation of your hypothesis, working with Alpine to say, look, I see this thing. I know what it can do. Let me show you what I can do. And then you build this company and you have what really is one of the most important technology companies in transportation with DAT. And they see the value of what you bring, and they believed in the story that you told, and they see the value of the customer. So how great does that feel to get that validation?
It's incredible. It is pretty surreal. The closing the deal was easily the kind of biggest professional milestone of my life so far. And I was really personally proud of it. And I was and continue to be so proud of our team. I'm seeing already at DAT, we have just the most incredible people at Trucker Tools and the impact they're making on the broader DAT organization already. Less than 60 days post-close is remarkable. So yeah, I think I just have really high expectations for myself, and I like to move really, really fast, to my detriment often. But I'm so excited about this next phase, and make sure that there's never a dull moment over here.
And you're on a bunch of different social media. So you have you're on LinkedIn. You're also on X.
Mhm.
Where do you find the most interesting freight content these days?
um, LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is great, and I got to give shout out to LinkedIn. It's the OG freight link, or I guess Facebook
That's right.
really is. I'm not on Facebook much, but I do check some, rate per mile masters and all those fun carrier groups. I think LinkedIn is probably the most valuable, though it's turning into a little bit of a Facebook, which I'm
Gotta
not.
get more videos. People need the video content.
Yeah, yeah. X is just kind of a cesspool, honestly. So I'm on there every now and then, but I'm trying to move away from it.
I find the most enjoyable place for me sometimes is Reddit, because I can be like looking at
Yeah,
my crested gecko stuff, and I can jump over to the freight brokers and talk about legal issues facing the industry. So I like that.
I love Reddit too, and you're one of the few brave Redditors out there who actually has an identifiable handle. I'm
It,
always on Freight Broker Reddit, but no one knows who I am.
Oh, you're just lurking back there. I
Oh, yeah,
appreciate that. Well,
working
for
hard.
me, it's like it's too much effort to be anything other than who I am. So like, if I'm on a place, it is this. It's the same thing. I would love to have different types of personas, but I don't have the time for that. I don't have the creativity for that. I gotta just be this random attorney screaming into the ether.
I love that confidence. You know who you are.
I've done it long enough. I mean, I'm 40 now. I'm halfway to 80, Carrie. I see that, and it's like, okay, what's my legacy? It's the same random guy screaming at things,
Well,
shaking my cane.
you're making an awesome impact. I can't wait to hear more about your teaching and how the first semester is going.
So look, I am so blessed. I am
Yeah.
blessed beyond measure. The story of this class was I was approached a couple weeks before the class began to come
Wow.
and teach it, and so I had to put together a syllabus to tell the story of of supply chain, and like, how did we get here? Because as we talked earlier in our conversation, you don't know where you're going unless you know where you've been, and
Mhm.
where we've been is something where companies like Yellow or the longshoremen and the automation that we see. It's such a fantastic thing. But the most enjoyable part has been bringing on people from the industry to talk to the students and tell them about what it is that we're facing. So you might get a kick out. So I had Ken Adamo come on to the program, to the class. I shouldn't say program. Come
Oh,
on to
he
the
spoke.
class.
He was a guest teacher or a guest
He did.
lecturer.
He
That's
spoke.
awesome.
He spoke. And what we talked about was broker transparency. So the FMCSA put out a regulation,
Yep.
and I had all of my students write a comment, either in favor or against. They didn't post them, but they wrote them. And I had Ken come and talk. And it was fantastic because you don't get to see the practical impacts of the law or supply chain unless you talk to people that do it. And that's been one of the most gratifying places. Speaking of broker transparency, how do you feel about that? Do you have an opinion?
I'm with Ken. Honestly, I
I'm
read
with
his
you.
white
Yeah.
paper, and that's where I stand.
I think the nice thing is I believe the Trump administration's likely not going to put out a final rule on that particular issue, even though there were way more comments than I ever anticipated. There were thousands and thousands.
Wow. Well, yeah, they've got plenty of other things going on, I
Well,
suppose.
oh man, you get just to get as I rant about this, we still have 20% of all commercial vehicles, if they get inspected, fail for safety, critical
Yeah,
safety.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, that the national out of service rate is like 21.5 or
Crazy.
21.6%. It's
It's crazy.
absurd. Like
I know.
it is. It should terrify everybody, but no
Yep.
one cares because we need our stuff faster and cheaper. That's the typical goal.
Yep.
Well, so as we wrap up for today, Carrie, you have in the last 2 or 3 months, you've done more than most people have done in a year or 2 or 3 years. So are you going to take some time off? Are you going to relax? Or is this just like, we're not going to stop, just keep hitting the gas?
Well, first of all, that's very kind. Thank you. We went to Costa Rica for a week over the holidays, which was lovely, and really enjoyed that. But I'm all gas. I just know one speed, so we got things to do. We're moving fast over here.
Well, you're a runner too, so you're
Yeah.
used to the speed.
Oh yeah, I am. I'm not as fast as you, and I'm more of a long distance than
You're
a
much faster than me
sprinter.
now. I'm
But
confident of that.
yeah, I like to keep the pace up. So no
The-
plans. I mean, we'll take I'm getting married later this year, so I'll take a little bit of time off for that. But
I remember you mentioning you were getting married when we were at the Journal of Commerce, I believe.
Yeah, we just got engaged.
That's so cool.
So that'll be great. But otherwise, I'm all in.
Well, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. If people want to find more of you or Trucker Tools or DAT, where should they go?
Yeah. Like I mentioned, LinkedIn is my home. So find me on there, just Carrie Jablonski. Also on Twitter, my handle is just my name. So feel free to give me a follow. The content isn't going to be as interesting as some of the other freight content on Twitter, but I like to get involved every now and then.
Well, I hope someday I discover who you are on Reddit. That'd be a great joy for me. But
I really don't post much. I'm definitely more of a lurker. Just trying to stir it up a little bit.
I just like I'm with you. I think I like to try these different things. I don't understand TikTok. I don't understand YouTube. I'm not great in those formats.
But I know, but video is the future. It's crazy. I don't have TikTok. I don't have Instagram. I don't do any of that stuff, but it is really, I think, our social team at least tells me that's where everything's going.
That's what people don't want to have to read. They just want it to listen, and then maybe they stick around, maybe they don't. Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, Carrie, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the program today. Thank you for all of your time and attention today. I will make sure to put some things in the show notes. People can find you if they want to. And congratulations on an incredible deal with DAT. I think a strategic like that with that kind of market penetration and insights is phenomenal. I mean, you have surely proven that you knew what you were doing, validated the concept, and grew something to an incredible spot where someone like that's like, I need to have this. That is fantastic.
Thank you. That means a lot. I really appreciate it.
I can't wait to see the book hitting coffee tables near you soon enough. Have a great rest of your day, Carrie. I appreciate you.
Thank you. You too. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. Carrie Jablonski. Oh, you got to get excited about this, folks. Look, the reality is nothing gets here unless it comes on a truck. It comes on a boat. It gets in the box. The box goes on a chassis. The chassis goes to a warehouse or a distribution center. And then it goes on a truck and it comes to your house. But you want to know, where's my stuff? Well, if you want to know where your stuff is, maybe look at Trucker Tools. I think they know a little bit about that information. As always, I have to thank my friends over at DAT, Dial a Truck. Since 1978, 1978, DAT has been helping people find loads. I got that logo. I got that hat. As always, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. Have a great Valentine's Day. And as always, we'll see you next time. Take care. And I hit the button and it goes away. Go away. It's going. It's done. Oh, I didn't hit it.